Hi everyone. In the previous classes, we have seen the concept of HTML and also we have seen the concept of CSS. This HTML is meant for the purpose of designing the web pages, whereas CSS is meant for in order to get more look and feel to our web page, we are using the concept of CSS. Okay. Now in today's class, we'll see the introduction of JavaScript, a new language, which we can call it as a scripting language. Okay, so it's a kind of a scripting language. This JavaScript is a high-level interpreted language, meaning that high-level means which is having more abstraction. It means uh, we can able to visualize only the main part, but we cannot able to know how the internal logic is implemented. Like for example, how the memory part implemented, all these things we don't know exactly. And also we can able to easily understand by this language, that is we call it as high level language. Interpreted language means it will be executed the code line by line. So because of the reason, the debugging is very, so meaning that JavaScript debugging is easy. As we are trying to execute line by line, the debugging of JavaScript is easy, meaning that identifying the bugs, identifying the errors in JavaScript is very easy. Whereas coming to other kind of languages like C language is a kind of compiled language, right? C language. Here debugging is very difficult as it is going to execute code at once. Whereas coming to these interpreted languages, they are going to execute line by line because of the reason debugging is very easy. Okay, fine. So if you nowadays this JavaScript language is a kind of interpreted compiled language. Interpreted compiled language because because there is a problem with interpreted compiled language because there is a problem with interpreter. The problem is it is going to take more time to execute, as it is going to take, as it is going to execute line by line, so it is going to more time to execute. So because of reason, performance is degrading. Performance is degrading. So to overcome this drawback, from the year 6 onwards, from the ECMAScript 6 onwards, JavaScript converted to JavaScript interpreted language. Interpreted language. So because reason, here they are using interpreter as well as a compiler called just-in-time compiler. A compiler called just-in-time compiler. So what it is going to do, it is going to convert our code into bytecode, which you already know in Java language. But Java is different, completely different from JavaScript. Okay. So what is it actually ES6 means? Actually, in the year 1995, there is a person called Brendan Eich introduced this JavaScript as LiveScript, and later they changed this name to JavaScript. JavaScript, as it follows the principles of ECMAScript. Principles of ECMAScript. So ECMAScript means it's a kind of an association. I think so. It is related to European Community Machine Association. It's a kind of association. They create certain set of rules. Whoever the developers trying to implement any kind of scripting language, they have to follow these principles. They have to follow these principles. Like there are various kind of other kind of scripting languages also there, like JavaScript. uh, some kind of script like action script. All these are various kind of scripting languages are there. Okay, these are all following the principles of ECMAScript only. So in the initial stages, the rules they developed as called as in the form of version 1, that is ECMAScript version 1. Later they call it as ECMAScript version 2 and so on. Presently, we are all the JavaScript version which we are following is ECMAScript 6 version. ECMAScript 6 version. So in this ECMAScript version, meaning that up to ES5, up to ES5, JavaScript we are calling it as a interpreted language only. Interpreted language only. Now, from ES6 onwards, they converted to a new kind of interpreted compiled language. Interpreted compiled language. I hope you understood this clear meaning. Okay, fine, fine. This is the basic introduction about the JavaScript. Okay, so this JavaScript I can execute at either client side or at server side. All right, server side. So in client side you can able to execute in the browser, whereas in server side, server itself will execute the server itself will execute the code. Server itself will execute the code. So whenever you are trying to execute any kind of JavaScript code in the browser, the advantage is will have very less traffic, meaning that sending the request to the server, sending the request to the server, and getting back the response from the server will occupy some kind of traffic. Will occupy some kind of traffic, but executing in the client browser itself there is will reduce the traffic. Will reduce the traffic. That is one of the advantages of this client side JavaScript. But the drawback is if the user if the user disables JavaScript execution in browser, our JavaScript code won't be executed. JavaScript code won't be executed. For example, if you go for menu, if you go for settings, you can search for JavaScript site settings, and if you go for here JavaScript, here you have an option: sites can use JavaScript, don't allow sites to use JavaScript. Once you select this option, our JavaScript code won't be executed. Even though you have written the code perfectly, uh, our JavaScript code won't be executed. At that time, our requirement cannot be satisfied and user will uh, face certain problems. So that is the drawback. So to overcome this drawback, we are going for server side scripting. So where the script code is always executed in the server side, and the language which we are using is PHP or any kind of Node.js, etc. All these are going to have various kind of scripting languages which are going to be executed in the server side. Executed. But here the drawback, right? The basic drawback is more network traffic, more network traffic. Okay, fine. Fine. So we have seen like what side the JavaScript code is going to be executed. Now let's see how to write JavaScript code. How to write JavaScript code. As CSS. In CSS we can write JavaScript code in three ways. In three ways. Similarly, the JavaScript code we can write it in two ways. In two ways. One is internal JavaScript. Another one is external JavaScript. Whereas coming to CSS, we'll have three ways: inline CSS, internal CSS. I hope you already know all these things. External CSS, external CSS. The external CSS you are going to go for whenever a particular code you want to reuse for all web pages. For all web pages, then I can go for external CSS by saving that file with an extension called some extension with .css, .css, and we can use a link tag. We can use a link tag to to combine. We can use link tag to make communication between that HTML file and the third party CSS file. Third party CSS file. Okay, that is the this is the tag we have to use. Whereas coming to external CSS, which is also meant for the same purpose, if you want to make use of your JavaScript code reuse multiple times for all web pages. For the web page which you want to record for all web pages, then you are going to save with an extension called .js, and we are going to use a tag called script tag. Script tag. The script tag having an attribute called source attribute. Through this attribute, I can able to combine. For example, I am going to write jk.js, so that my HTML web page will be communicated with that uh, jk.css file. jk.css file. Okay, fine. For example, let me go with some editor. I'm going to save the file first. CSC3. For example, let me take csc3.html. I have saved my file in the form of HTML. CSC3 first JavaScript. Now, so we can write it in two ways. One is in the form of external CSS. So how we are going to write the external CSS? First, we need to create a new file. We are going to create a new file. That new file I need to save with an extension called jk.js in the desktop. I need to save. Okay. For example, I would like to write one JavaScript code, console.log of hi, hello, welcome to CSS. I saved this file. Now, if the JavaScript file wants to communicate with the HTML file, I need to use a script tag. Script. I need to use an attribute called source attribute that I need to communicate with jk.js. Okay. Now these two are connected. Now let me open this in the browser. Open in browser. That file will be opened. Right here, I have written the code. I would like to execute this in the console. Console is a kind of a window. Log is a kind of method which is meant for to log the data. So that is why I need to open my console. So by pressing simply F12, it will be related to console. Hi, hello, welcome to CC. Or else you can go with the menu, more tools, developer tools. In the console option, you can have hi, hello, welcome to CSS. If you want, you can change some data. Welcome to CSS or Zucchetti, no Zucchetti. If I refresh this page, automatically that will be neat on the console. So this is the way we can confirm that this jk.css file will be communicated with my HTML file. So for example, JavaScript first class I have written for the purpose of communication. Yes. So instead of this, I make comment. I can write I want to display in the my document of the web page. My web page document dot. I have a method called write hi, hello, or educate students. Okay, anyway, don't worry about all these things. I will explain this in the further classes. Now it will display on the, you can observe hi, hello, or educate students. That is advantage. If you go for uncomment this also, both will be displayed. Okay, so with this I can confirm that this jk.js file will be communicated this HTML file. So this is the way you need to write the external JS, which is same as like external CSS, but with a tag called link tag here. Here we are using a tag called script tag. Coming to internal JavaScript. So internal CSS means this is also meant for the purpose of writing the CSS code for the specific to the web page. Specific to the web page. We are going to use a tag called style tag. That too, this tag you need to use inside head section. I should not use this tag anywhere in the HTML web page, like in the body section or whatever it may be. Okay, so this is the way you are going to use internal CSS. Whereas coming to internal JS, if you want to write any JavaScript code specific to a web page, I need to use a tag called script tag that I can able to use either inside head section, or I can go with body section, or I can go with at both locations. So you can go with, for example, I would like to write in the head section script type equal to extra JavaScript. Here I am going to write some set of JavaScript code, console.log of all these things. Or I can go with here also script type equal to extra JavaScript. Or I can go with here also script type equal to extra JavaScript. Like this, you can able to write n number of times. You can write the script code, but it is always recommended to go for writing all the script tags all the script tags at the before the end of the body section body before the end of the body section, because your browser is going to start its execution from top to bottom. While executing from top to bottom, if suppose here there is script tag which contains some 10,000 lines of code, 10,000 lines of code. Now what will happen is, trying to execute this 10,000 lines of code will take some time, and that too it won't display anything to the user. After executing this 10,000 lines of code, then only our browser start displaying the remaining HTML code. Now that at the time user may feel that this web page is not loading perfectly, so they may move to next web page. So instead of getting that kind of feeling to the user, we should write this 10,000 lines of code at the before the end of the body tag, so that first HTML and CSS files will load, that data will be loaded to the user. They may feel that loading is very fast, and meanwhile, while he is feeling very happy, meanwhile this code may be executed. That is the reason it is always recommended to go for writing the script tags at the end of the script before the body tag, okay, fine. So these are the two ways we need to write your javascript code. Okay, fine. So guys, here, if I go with javascript, there are many advantages are there for you. First thing is, we can able to build a application very fastly. We can able to build a application very fastly. For example, if you go with Node.js, we can able to implement server-side programming very easy. For example, if you would like to develop any web application, I can able to implement all those web applications. Okay. For example, I would like to develop any kind of mobile application. I will develop many kind of mobile application. For this, you already heard, I think, native React. I'm sorry. I think it is React Native only. You are going to heard the term called React Native, which is meant for to implementing the any kind of reactive application, React Native applications, React Native JS. We can call it as any kind of. We can able to implement any kind of desktop applications also. This is the reason we are trying to learn our JavaScript. Okay, like for example, uh, the main reason why we are using web application, which is meant for the purpose of more interactiveness to the web page, we are using mobile web applications. Sorry, JavaScript. Okay, fine. uh, and also not only about all these kind of applications, we are also using which is meant for the purpose of some kind of DOM manipulation purpose, or some kind of form validation, and also we no need of any compiler. Like this, we are having various kind of advantages of this JavaScript. That is the reason we are trying to study the JavaScript here. Okay, fine. Okay, fine guys. So up to now, what you have seen is some basic introduction about JavaScript, and how we are going to write the JavaScript, and the advantage of this JavaScript. Okay, fine, guys. So if you want to go for discussing the further concepts, let me have some basic description about identifiers. So identifier means, which is kind of some kind of naming conventions or rules which are given to any kind of thing, any kind of elements. Those rules we need to follow while writing any kind of names. Next, we will see the concept of variables. Variables means is a kind of a name of memory location which is meant for to store some data. So generally in C language, in C language, we are going to write any variable with the help of data type followed by variable name like this variable name, variable name. Whereas coming to JavaScript, we can write the variables in three ways. One is with the help of a keyword called var keyword, another one with the help of a keyword called let keyword, another one with the help of a keyword called constant keyword, constant keyword. So these are all small letters. These are small letters. See, one more important point. This JavaScript is case sensitive. JavaScript is case sensitive, meaning that whatever the way that you are writing, that should be compulsory followed. Meaning that capital letter should be capital and small letter should be capital. So all the keywords should be small letters. Var key. For example, so I will try to execute this in the console itself. How we are going to declare the variables? So with the help of simple syntax by using a keyword called var keyword, right? Var, yeah, this is what we call it as a variable declaration. Variable declaration. If I go with var b equal to 5, this is what we call it as a variable initialization. Variable initialization. Okay, let me go with the direct execution part. Var a equal to 5. Var a equal to 5. So if you are trying to print some data, console dot log of a, that data will be displayed 5. For example, I would like to display some in the form of string. Console dot log of entered value is, entered value is comma, yeah. Then I can go with entered value is 5. Like this we can declare a variable, or I can go with let b equal to 6. Let b equal to 6, the same thing. Or else you can go with constant c equal to 7. Constant c equal to 7. All these three keywords are meant for the purpose of defining the variables, purpose of defining the variable. But there is, as they have declared some extra thing, right? They have some difference. So actual thing is up to es5, up to es5 we have only var keyword, we have only var keyword. But from later es6 onwards we have these two keywords also. So the difference between these var and the es5 onwards is var is having function scope. Var variables the variables which we are declaring with a keyword called var, it is having function scope, and this is having block scope. Guys, this should be smaller, this should be smaller. So which is also having block scope. This is the one of the difference between var and let and constant keyword. I mean, guys, for example, let me take one simple example for you. For example, uh, if I write some code here, if I write some code, for example, let me take some function. I am taking function, don't worry about this syntax. I am taking it as a function. Okay, let me take let, or else I will go with the var x equal to 10, or else guys I will go with system editor. Go with this editor. Okay, fine. Hi, here I am trying to write our JavaScript code var function. I am trying to declare var x equal to 10, and if my x value is equal to 10, x value is equal to 10, what I will do is I will try to print the value of, define the value of y as some 15, value of y as 15, and then what I will do is I will try to print console dot log of value of y is, value of y is y, value of y is y. I can write like this. I can write like this. Okay. Then simply what I will do is I will simply call, I will simply call a method called func method. A method called func method. func method. Now what will happen? You can observe in the output section. Value of y is 15. Value of y is 15. Now guys, you can observe here I am trying to work with var keyword. When the value of x is 10, if it is equal to 10, it is going to execute in the block and y value will be 15. That value will be accessed as y value. So here it is accessing because y is function scope. Y is function scope. Actually it is a block. Outside this block I cannot able to access, but as it is a function scope I can able to access outside of this one. For example, instead of this I can go with let j equal to 25. Let j equal to 25. Let me call console dot value of j is I am trying to print right now. You can observe what is the output. Uncaught reference error, y is not defined. Why? The value of j here, j is block scope. It is a block scope. That is why it is providing an error. That is why it is providing an error. So that is the difference between function scope as well as block scope. This is the main difference between the var keyword and let keyword. And also one more difference, there is one more difference. For example, let me comment this entire code, okay, or else I will make comment of this code only. Comment of this code only. For example, var k equal to 20. Var k equal 20. Let me go with console dot log of k. Console dot log of k. If I go with var k equal to 30, var k equal to 30, console dot log of k. Now what is the output can we expect here? We can expect both 20 and 30. Both 20 and 30. For example, let me go with the keyword called let d equal to 40. I'm going with the let keyword d value. If I execute this, you will get 20, 30, 40. But if I go with let d equal to 50, d equal to 50, I'm trying to print once again that d. If I refresh, you will get an error. Uncaught syntax error, identifier d has already been declared, meaning that you have redeclared the variable. Redeclare the variable that will provide error with the help of a keyword called let keyword. So this is the reason. So which is same as like C language. In C language also trying to redeclare a variable will provide an error. Declare a variable will provide an error. So that is the reason you should not make redeclare this. Okay, fine. So meaning that if you would like to go with, so variable redeclared, variable redeclared should be variable redeclared provides error, provides error with the late, but not vacuum. Okay, fine. Guys, here I may have one more option. Here you can observe. I didn't declare this var k equal 20. Var k equal 20. Let me go control Z. I'm going to comment here. I'm going to comment here. Going to comment here. Now this is also a make comment. Now what is the output we'll expect? We will expect it as undefined. We'll expect as undefined. For example, if I made this comment, if I am trying to print the value of k, as k value is not initialized anywhere, it will provide an error. It will provide uncaught reference error, k is not defined. But if we define the k value at somewhere after the print statement also, it will provide undefined. It will provide undefined. But if I am trying to print the console.log of d, you will get an error that you know. But even though we have declared the variable d with let keyword after the print statement, it will provide an error. Uncaught reference, I cannot access the d before initialization. This is also one more difference between the let and where keyword. I mean, where can be used before its initialization, but not in let keyword. But not in let keyword. So these are some of the differences between these variables. Okay, guys, here you may get, for example, okay, I will refresh. So I'm sorry, I made it comment 1 second. Now this error gone. Yeah, if I am going to have where j equal to 5, j equal to 5. Now, guys, have you observed in C language, if you would like to define anything, int a equal to 5, you would like to go with int a equal to 5, meaning that I am trying to specifically define what type of data type is. But whereas coming to JavaScript, we are not mentioning whether we are not mentioning uh, the data type. We are simply saying whether it is a variable or not. But what will happen is JavaScript engine internally identifies what kind of data type it is. It will identify what kind of data type is. That is why we have to know the concept of data type also. So that various kind of JavaScript data types are there. JavaScript data types are there. Like we have string data type is there, object data type is there, integer, all those not there. If you observe here, there is a method called, there is a operator called type of operator, which is meant for to define type of data, to define type of data. We are using type of, for example, let me take uh, console dot log of type of j, type of, if I say enter, what will happen? The variable j is a kind of a number data type. For example, where k equal to Krishna, I would like to define console.log of type of k. It will provide a string. So meaning that there is no meaning of integer. We are having only number data type. For example, let me take where h equal to 5.5, 5.5, 5.5 console dot log of type of h. That is also number. So there is no concept of float, meaning that here string, object, number, boolean, boolean, null, undefined, all these are the various kind of data types are there. So these are the various kind of data types are there. Okay, fine. Guys, as we are mentioning any kind of data type here, like we are simply mentioning where a equal to 5, where b equal to 5, that's it. We are not specifically mentioning. That is why this language we are calling it as loosely typed language. JavaScript is loosely typed language because we are not specifying any data type. We are not specifying any data type. Okay, there are some languages which are meant for like strictly typed languages. We have to mention specifically those languages, like C language is a kind of a strictly typed language. TypeScript is a kind of strictly typed language. Guys, nowadays this TypeScript is very popular because Angular, React, all are using this TypeScript only. This TypeScript only because so there is not much difference between this JavaScript and TypeScript. In TypeScript scripting language, we are specifically mentioning type of data that we are using, like whether we are following integer, whether we are following float, whether we are following like that. All those things we are, for example, how we are going to mentioning in JavaScript where j equal to, we are mentioning this specifically uh, for example Krishna, we're specifically mentioning Krishna. This is what we are doing in JavaScript, but whereas coming to TypeScript, we need to specify its type also, that is string, that is, that's it. Nothing difference between this JavaScript and TypeScript. So that is the reason only they are saying it as TypeScript. We need to specifically mention its type. That is the reason we can avoid more errors when compared to JavaScript. That is the reason only they followed the scripting language called TypeScript. Okay, fine. So like this you can able to define. Okay, for example, let me go with the constant keyword. Uh, you can observe here. If I go with the constant keyword, constant k equal to 8, constant k equal to 8, k equal to 9, we will get an error. We'll get an error because k has already been declared, because k is a kind of a constant. Once we declare any variable as constant, we should not reuse that variable again to make it declare it, to make initialization. That is why you are getting an error. That is the advantage of constant. Constant is also a kind of a block level element. Why? I need to save this. Okay, this is already declared. 1 minute. Let me go with some new variable like e. I will show this once again clearly. E equal to 9. If I go with this assignment to constant literal, line number 25, this is the way. So if I made remove this one, that will remove another. Okay, so I think I have shown a string object I need to show. So how we are going to write? So object is a kind of a real world entity, right? For example, if you take car, if you take car, car is having some properties, and some methods, right? So declaring this thing as a kind of an object. So how we are going to declare? Where normal as usual. Why? So this one, where car equal, I need to define in the form of flower branches. For example, car is having name of the car. Name of the car is ambassador. Ambassador. For example, type of the car is diesel. Like this, we can able to declare. This is what we call it as object. So boolean. How we are going to define whether it is a boolean or not? For example, console dot log of type of. For example, if it is true, that is what we call it as boolean. Null we have seen, undefined we have seen, number seen, and string we have already seen. Now object how we are going to declare, like for example, where, let me take person equal to something like name, this one. If I press enter, that will be. So if you want console.log of type of person, if you define, this is a kind of an object. This is a kind of an object. Okay, fine. For example, I would like to access specifically the entire object, then I can go with press object name. If you would like to get access of the corresponding name of the person dot. If you would like to access height, I can able to access its height. If you would like to access person dot name, I can able to access with person dot name. Can I rename this name equal to something like code? Will it provide an error or not? Name equal to code. It won't provide error. Now if I access the person dot name, will it getting anything? No. So if you want to get I'm trying to print the person. Even though I'm trying to write name equal to code, that won't be affected because I need to specifically mention the which kind of object I need to modify. So for this, what I will do is person dot name equal to code. That's it. Now if I print console name equal to code, height equal to 5.5. This is the way we can able to define the object. Strings, number, boolean, all these things, and type of operator which I have already seen. Okay, fine. So for example, if you go with the other things like strings, somewhat about strings. So how we are going to declare strings? Something like I will go into refresh, where where jk equal to hi, hello, welcome to, I'm sorry, welcome to CSC, welcome to CSC, where kj equal to rgkt nojbit. I declare two strings. I would like to concatenate these two strings in the output string. Then what I can do, console dot log of hi. I can able to use plus operator, plus jk, plus I would like to make some kind of question mark. For example, let me take with kj. So for concatenation, we are going to use a plus operator. That is what I would like. Hi, hello, welcome to CSC, question mark, rgk, nojbit. This is the way you can able to use concatenation operator. For example, I would like to convert all this into an uppercase format. Then what I can do, I have a method called jk dot to uppercase. We have a method called to uppercase method that I can able to convert. If I want to convert to lowercase, I have a method called as already in lowercase, we cannot able to differentiate. If you want to able to convert to camel case, I can able to convert. For example, I would like to split jk dot. I have a method called split method. Here you can observe split separator. What kind of separator you need to follow? For example, I would like to make a space. Wherever the space is there, I need to separate. Then I can go with this. Hi, hello, welcome to CC. Like this, you can able to separate. For example, I would like to split jk dot split off wherever o is there. Wherever o is there, I need to split, and its return type is any kind of array. If you want to extract substring or whatever it may be, like jk dot, we have a method called substring method, substring of from which location to start location and end location. If you are going to specify, for example, my start location is 3, start location is 3, then then you can define like this. Observe, it is going to define 0 1 2 space, up to space it has removed 0 1 2. Then from 3 onwards, hello, welcome to CC, enter remaining till be completed. If I'm not mentioning end of the string, then it will be converted to automatically the end of the string. From 3 to I need to have 3 4 5 6 7. Then again I need to define 8. What happened? If you would like to get 3 to 7, I need to make it as 8, meaning that the n number minus 1 portion it need to print. Like this, we can able to use various kind of string methods. Okay, fine. So this is for today's class. In tomorrow's class, we'll see further concepts.